It all started in an elevator.
It started with one statistic.
Approximately every 2 seconds.
Every 2 seconds, someone around the world dies from malnutrition.
I'm Kelsey, and this is my best friend, Christy.
And this is the statistic that started 2 seconds or less.
In November of 2011, we were sitting in an elevator at our college doing our weekly homework sessions when we discovered this statistic.
Have you ever heard something that wrenches your heart so much that you just simply cannot let it go?
And in that moment, we decided that we couldn't let it go.
4 months later, we were on a plane traveling to one of the most impoverished countries in the world, Zimbabwe. We only had 2 backpacks, some granola bars, and a tent. What got us there? Faith. Why were we going? We weren't really sure yet, but we were about to find out.
2 weeks before all of this happened, we called each other expressing a mutual feeling that if we wanted to help these people, we needed to see their needs firsthand. The only time to do that was 2 weeks from that day on our college spring break, so we booked the tickets. Leading up to the trip, we did everything we could to try to devise some sort of plan for what we were going to do there. I must have called 50 organizations with operations in Zimbabwe, asking for some sort of help, to shadow them, to see what they do, to find where we could begin our operations. But let's be honest, we were 19 years old. The unfortunate fact is that not a lot of people took us seriously. We didn't get much help from them.
No, we didn't get any help from them, but luckily, I found one number on Google and happened to pass it on to Kelsey.
One number after I called 50 organizations, spent a week making no success.
It's funny how things turn out.
So I called this one organization, and I'll never forget it. I talked to this one woman named Jeannie. She first picked up, and she was the receptionist for this organization. And I told her everything we were doing, that we were just starting out, that we had no idea why we were going to Zimbabwe or what we'd do there, but she immediately gave me the email for the executive director of this organization. And so I emailed him and received a reply with his cell phone number so that I could call him that night and talk about what we're doing. I talked to him, and he was able to give me the contact of a man that lived in Zimbabwe that might be able to help us. And this man wasn't going to be home until the 7th, which was the day that we were getting there. So we had nothing to do but to step on that plane and to go with blind faith of what would happen and where it would lead.
So a 22-hour flight later, we finally landed in Zimbabwe, and we walked off the plane so ready to complete our mission, got into the airport, left, looked around at everything, and immediately turned around and walked back in. Because we had no clue what we were doing. All that we had was this one number that we could do something with.
So we went back inside, I pulled this scrap of paper out of my pocket, and we called. And within an hour, we had been introduced through this contact to a man who would change our lives forever.
This man was Patrick Makakoro. He was a local Zimbabwean who completely just blew our minds with how much information he had to offer us about his country. He told us about all the political issues, all the government issues, the ethics of the country. He taught us about the culture, literally everything that you could possibly need. We learned from this man. Not to mention, he also spoke perfect English, which is, a rarity in that country. He owned his own nonprofit that helped support vulnerable and orphan children in Zimbabwe, which is exactly what we were looking to do. And he was really, really familiar with the type of sustainable agriculture approach that we wanted to go about. So what Patrick did immediately was take us into the city to get us food to start our journey. And so we went to this grocery store and we put all of our food on the conveyor belt, and immediately he stepped in front of us saying, no, I got this one. And we're like, no, we can handle this, Patrick, like it's fine. And he refused. He absolutely refused to let us pay. And so within 24 hours, we had food and a place to stay.
Naka means inheritance. It's the name of his foundation, Naka Foundation. And he provides ways of empowerment to orphan and vulnerable children of Zimbabwe. And what I thought was really cool about Patrick is that he actually built his hut in a village, an impoverished village, so that he can live amongst the people that he's planning to help, or that he does help. And so he brought us back there, and the way Patrick influenced our lives, I can never even put out into words. So here we were thinking that we were going to be sleeping in a tent, eating a few granola bars, trying here and there to shadow an organization to see where we could help. And we find ourselves living in a village amongst the people that need us, and living with an amazing Christian man that we met through one single phone contact. Patrick took us all around the country of Zimbabwe, showing us the multitude of needs that were present. We rode in the back of his truck through the dirt roads and stopped at schools and communities to actually talk with the people about what was needed.
The best part that we not only got to talk to the teachers and to the board of the schools, but we actually got to talk to the students and say, how can we help you? You know, what situations do you live with on a daily basis, and how are your lives kind of different from ours in the States?
We saw a bunch of kids walking away from the school, and Patrick turned to us and said, guys, go ask those kids why they're leaving. And he already knew the answer, but we did. We said, where are you going? You're walking away from the school. And they said that they couldn't be there because they didn't have the $15 left to pay for their year of school.
And
$15.
And what the most important thing about Africa in general is that education is absolutely the only way that students can remove themselves from the cycle of poverty. And without food, without the proper shelter, and without money, they're not going to be able to get that education. They're not going to be able to get themselves out of that cycle of poverty. And that is the most important thing. And that's what we're trying to fight, is to get those students out so they can, help themselves live a more sustainable and productive life.
It was a humbling thing to be able to talk with those people twice your age that are begging for you to help them. And that right there is why we were in Zimbabwe. It's the whole reason we left. It's what we didn't know when we stepped on that plane.
And so we spent the next 5 days just bonding with this family and just having the best time, and really just letting our hearts be broken for these people in Zimbabwe, and becoming, more passionate about what we're trying to do here, our cause. And the end of the week came, and it was so sad. And Patrick had become like an angel to us. And so we asked him, we're like, how is this possible that you're doing this? How did this come to be? And he proceeded to tell me the story about Naka Foundation, and about how a month before, it wasn't necessarily a Christian organization. It wasn't, set in stone that it was going to be a Christian organization.
Even though he was a strong Christian man, the problem is that you lose a lot of your donors when you proclaim your Christian faith, because not everyone has the same beliefs as you. And with the money being so hard to find in Zimbabwe, they're trying to get everything they can to help these people in need.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's really hard to narrow it down like that.
But Patrick set that proposal to his organization, and they said, Patrick, this isn't you. This needs to be, God-based. And so Patrick went and just prayed about it really, really hard, and dug in deep. And he felt God telling him, if you are shy of me, then I'm going to be shy of you for the rest of your days. And so Patrick said, okay, God, we'll change this. We'll do something. This will be completely for your glory and in your name. And he said, under one condition: prove to me that there are young men and women in other countries rising up that still care about the vulnerable children and orphans in Zimbabwe. A week later, we showed up. So Patrick just told this whole story about how we were his sign from God. And that was incredibly humbling, because we felt the exact opposite, that Patrick was our sign from God, that
he was everything to us for this trip.
And there was just these two worlds that met so cohesively, but so indescribably. It's unbelievable.
We left the next day after expressing to Patrick our desire to help. We wanted to make a change in the lives of those we had met that week. Upon landing in America, we opened our emails to find a message from Patrick requesting a partnership with 2 seconds or less.
The plan outlined how we would provide for the impoverished children of Zimbabwe by combining our passions of education and sustainable hunger solutions. We got on that plane with one contact and no idea what God was going to provide for us. Now, we operate regularly in Zimbabwe and help those kids that we left our hearts with that much.
Your smile shines like the rising sun. Kiss me on the cheek so softly. Brush the hair from your eyes and settle it.
Thank you for watching this video. We think this story needs to be shared. It shows how God will provide even when the odds may seem completely against you. It shows how little people can make a big difference.
2 Seconds or Less tours the country, speaking to schools, churches, and communities about the calling that God has placed on our hearts. It means the world to us to be able to speak about how passion can indeed become action.
If this story at all touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you and talk about ways that we can further the mission together with your church or community or school. We hope to hear from you soon. And until then, Wadi Wakanaka. God is good.